Is Lady Gaga going to be the star of the Grammys this year? Will Kendrick end up taking home more, or is it Bad Bunny's year to finally shine? Also, are we going to see appearances from names like Tate McRae and Addison Rae, who haven't been recognized by the Grammys before? Let's get into it on my Grammys preview episode, where we're going to talk about some of the major pop stars and what their chances are at next year's awards now that the submission period is over. This is the Pop Pod. I am Sam, also known as Pop Sam Cam. Thank you so much for joining me. I do have to apologize for the late episode, or I guess lack of episode last week for Bop or Flop. Turns out that the internet's not great on the Greek islands, and some things have taken me up to 3 days to upload, so everything is on a bit of a backlog right now. Jono and I will do a bumper episode this week to cover all the new music, because there was a lot of new music last week. I guess the big one for the people who are listening to this podcast is Jade's That Showbiz Baby, which came out. I actually did react to it. So if you want to go and see my reaction to it, that is on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, before we get into this episode, if you are liking the inconsistency and chaos of the Pop Pod, you can follow or subscribe if you're not already. And you can also hit me up on Instagram or TikTok. You can find me there. Rate this podcast 5 stars. Come and join the Discord if you want to join with more pop fans. Something you can also do is I have started a close friends on my Instagram, where I'm putting up hot takes that you won't find on any of my other accounts. If you want to come and join that, DM me on Instagram and just say you've come from the Pop Pod, and I will add you straight away to that close friends group. But let's get into this episode. Obviously, the Grammy submission period runs up until around the end of August, start of September. So we now have every bit of music released that can be counted for this year's awards. So what I wanted to do is I want to go through some of the major pop stars, and I want to talk about what their chances are, essentially. So I will go through artist by artist, and I'm obviously going to leave out some of the ones who haven't released anything this year or don't have any chance, like Taylor Swift and Beyonce. They had their year last year. They're not going to be included this year. I'll go through the main ones and I'll tell you what categories I think that they could get nominated in and what I think that they could get nominated for. If you have any ideas about people that I've missed out on, you can always send a voice note to the email that is down below in the show notes, and I will play that and respond to that on the episode. So ask questions about any artist that you think should be nominated or somebody that I haven't brought up, but I'm hopefully going to cover most of the big ones today. Let's just get straight into it now. I think that the one that we are most interested in for this year is Lady Gaga. She released Mayhem. I think that album has been a renaissance of sorts for her. I think that it's been a total career reignitement. And I don't mean, I think that Lady Gaga is obviously being an A-tier top pop star for the longest time, and I don't think anything at this point is going to change that. But I do think that this has been a level up for her, and a reminder for a lot of people why we love Gaga in the first place. The tour has been hugely successful. The album's been hugely successful as well, and I think when it comes to the Grammys, we are going to see that recognized in a number of different ways. I wouldn't be surprised if she's going to walk away as at least one of the top 3 nominees of this year. I think that you're going to see Mayhem, obviously, in the Album of the Year category. If this doesn't happen, something serious has gone wrong. This is a category that she's been snubbed in before, but I just don't think that they will do it with Mayhem. I think that this has to be a nomination. And I think we've seen in previous years with what they've done with albums by Beyonce and Taylor Swift is that if you release a pop album these days as a star with a stature as big as hers, it performs pretty well commercially and critically, you're going to see a bucket load of nominations. We saw it with the Tortured Poets Department. We saw it with Cowboy Carter. The other lesson that we can learn from Cowboy Carter is that they are kind of looking at artists that they have wronged in the past and making up for their mistakes. We're going to talk about an artist very soon that they have also done this with a lot. And I would not be surprised if she walks away with this award in the same kind of way that Beyonce walked away with the award, which felt like almost like we know what we've done to you in the past and we're not doing it again right now. I think that Gaga should have taken this award home at least once before with something like The Fame Monster. She didn't. Mayhem is going to be time for some retribution here. Then we move to Record of the Year and Song of the Year, which I think is where Abracadabra is going to come into play. Potentially, she might put Vanish Into You up for Song of the Year over Abracadabra. I don't think that would be wise because I think that Abracadabra is obviously the big single from this record, apart from Die With a Smile, which had its chance last year. I think that Abracadabra, if submitted for both categories, will be nominated in both categories. Definitely. I just don't think that this is a conversation that needs to be had, to be honest. I think then we move to how she's going to play with the pop categories. Pop vocal album, definitely Mayhem is getting nominated. I would bet my life on this, which is not a lot. I don't have a lot to put into this bet, but but I would bet it. I'll bet everything I have. Then we go to pop solo performance, which I think that is going to probably be somewhere where she could nominate Vanish Into You, because if you saw my video on this, I think that she's going to leave Abracadabra for best dance pop performance. And I think that in that's probably the category where she has the biggest chance to win. So I feel like she could do that and do Vanish Into You, which has probably the much more impressive vocal performance. She'll leave that for pop solo performance. I think that there's still a chance for there to be a number of other routes where Gaga could catch some nominations. Best music video for Abracadabra, I think, is a chance as well. I'm trying to think what else she could possibly be nominated for. I mean, if she really wanted to go down that route, I think the Perfect Celebrity could potentially be nominated in the rock categories. We've seen Beyonce do this with her albums where she will spot songs from the album across all of the categories, and maybe Gaga is going to try that as well. I would actually like to see that happen. I feel like the electronic categories is somewhere where she could go as well. Let's see what happens, but no doubt in my mind that Gaga is going to be a big, big nominee this year, as is Kendrick Lamar.
Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with them.
I think GNX was a real turning point for him. Obviously, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers didn't perform as well, perhaps commercially. Didn't perform badly, but certainly not up to the standard of GNX, which came off the bat of the whole Drake debacle. That obviously earned him nominations and wins last year. He won Record of the Year and Song of the Year for Not Like Us, and that's without even the album out. So first things first, GNX, an obvious nominee for Album of the Year. It's definitely going to happen. He's an artist who's also been snubbed a lot in the past, and I feel like GNX could catch the win and is probably Lady Gaga's biggest competition right now, outside of two artists I think that I'll bring up later that could also get it. The rap categories are all a lock for him. I think that Record and Song of the Year will be Luther with SZA, and I think that in Record of the Year, that one is potentially a major contender. It could also go up for, there's a duo rap category. I think it's Best Sung Rap Collaboration or something like that, where this one will probably end up winning that. I think that for every rap category, he's going to get a nomination. He'll get a nomination in the big three ones. I don't know if pop is going to be, maybe they could submit Luther for best pop duo / group performance, but I think they'll probably keep it for the rap sung category. And I think he could end up getting up to 9-10 nominations and be probably the most nominated artist of the night. So it will be a big year for Kendrick. I'm also hoping it's going to be a big year for Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, not always a huge contender at the Grammys. Obviously in the Latin category they have done it, but I feel like he needs to be a main player in the main categories. DTMF, such a major moment for him. I think the most streamed project of the year so far. You would have to check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's true, at least until Taylor Swift releases The Life of a Showgirl. But I think we're going to see him an Album of the Year. The last time he got an Album of the Year nomination was for Un Verano Sin Ti. I got there eventually. There you go. That was the last time, and the first time he was nominated for Album of the Year. I think that is definitely going to happen with that. Then I think we're going to move to Record and Song of the Year, which I think that the title track has a major chance at. It was a top 10 record in the US. It has hung around on streaming. I feel like that is going to be surely a lock for that nomination. And then obviously the Latin categories he has on lock as well. Although I would like to see him and them take a chance and nominate him in some of the pop categories as well, because I feel like sometimes the Latin categories are cop out because it means that they can nominate artists like this and kind of still award them without like without putting an emphasis on the influence that they have had on mainstream music in general within the year. And I would like to see them just recognize the moment that Bad Bunny has had. And he's had such a moment this year. It's been really fun to watch. So he's another one that I think could get a lot of nominations. We also have some heavy hitters that I'll talk about at the end, but let's talk about some ones that I'm on the fence about. First one being Addison Rae. Addison released her debut album this year. I don't think anyone was expecting this album to be as critically acclaimed as it was. It got some incredible reviews, including an 8 from Pitchfork, which I think puts her very much in the conversation. I think these songs have streamed pretty well. Fame is a Gun, Diet Pepsi have done really well. I think that could put her within the realm of a Best New Artist nomination. And I talked about this on my New Artist episode, which you can go back and listen to. It was just a couple of episodes ago. But I think that she's a real contender for that category. Then we move to the pop categories. I think the Best Pop Vocal Album is a potential, but I probably wouldn't bet on it just yet because there are so many albums in that category to be considered now. We've got Gaga, Justin Bieber, Sabrina Carpenter, Tate McRae, some real heavy hitters from the year. So I'll be interested to see if she can get a nomination there. I think Best Dance Pop Recording is where she could have a real moment, potentially with Fame is Gone. I would like to see that happen. I also think Best Pop Solo Performance could be where Diet Pepsi could be nominated as well. I would like to see all of this happen for her. I also feel like the music video category, even though she wasn't recognized with the VMAs, I think she deserves to be recognized at the Grammys because I think that her music videos have been a cut above. So I would like to see that. I also feel like Tate McRae is an incredibly interesting one to observe as well because the Grammys has basically barred Tate from the categories every single year. Even when she had Greedy, which was such a major moment, they didn't recognize it, which has me thinking that maybe they're not going to recognize her at all. I don't know how I feel about this because I feel like this album has been incredibly like a little bit of a career game changer for her without having like a massive single. Like Sports Car being the biggest one from the record still hasn't made it into the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, even though it's been a massive streamer. And she also hasn't got the critical acclamation from, is that the right word? I'm hot. So Close to What hasn't got the same critical acclaim that I feel like some of these other pop projects have gotten. So I'm very interested to see what they do here. But I do think with the tour, her VMAs performance, just the fact that it's clear that she's got a huge fan base, the album sold incredibly well. I feel like it would be remiss of them not to recognize her in some kind of way. I feel like Sports Car Record of the Year, Song of the Year, there will be a submission. I'm guessing that for Song of the Year, definitely not included. Record of the Year potentially included, but I think we need to move to the pop categories to see what she could really do here. I think Best Pop Solo Performance could be where it could happen for her. I also think Best Pop Vocal Album, So Close to What, is definitely in with a chance there. Unfortunately, I think one of her biggest possibilities is in the country duo/group performance category, where I think her song with Redacted could get a nomination, could actually end up winning there, which would be her first Grammy Award. Good for her, but terrible for the culture. But going to something much more exciting, which is Best Dance Pop Performance, I feel like she could get Best Dance Pop Recording. I feel like she could get a nomination there for Revolving Door, which I have said in the TikTok video as well, if you want to go back and watch that. But let's go to somebody that I am way more sure of, which is Sabrina Carpenter.
I get wet for you. Being a responsible guy.
Sabrina Carpenter was a big nominee last year. I was expecting her to walk away with Record of the Year for Espresso. She didn't, but she did walk away with Best Pop Vocal Album, and she did walk away with Best Pop Solo Performance. She was nominated for Best New Artist. She lost that to Chappell. Man's Best Friend obviously has done incredibly well. I don't think that it's had the same kind of cultural gravitas that Short and Sweet has had, but I do think that Man-Child has been massive. #1 single. There's several other songs from the record that are continuing to do well. I feel like an Album of the Year nomination is kind of a lock for me on this. She's probably the biggest pop star around right now, bar Taylor, so to lock her out of this category would just feel kind of weird to me. I think that Man-Child is a lock for Record of the Year and probably Song of the Year as well. Although we saw her do something interesting last year, which was that she submitted Please 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 for Song of the Year and Espresso for Record of the Year. If she wanted to go down that route, maybe she would nominate one of the slower songs, but I don't think she has one that had the same impact as Please Please Please. So I just think she's going to go with Man-Child in both categories. All of the pop categories, barring the pop duo/group performance, which she doesn't have anything to submit for, I think that she's a lock for all of them, really. I think that that's really going to happen. Best music video, definite Man-Child in that. I think it's probably the best pop music video that we've had this year, apart from Abracadabra, which I think will also be nominated within that category. They're the ones that I think that she's going to scoop in. I don't know if she'll try for any other categories. Maybe she'll submit in some of the country categories, but I think that the pop one is really where she is going to do exceptionally well. Okay, let's move on to The Weeknd. The Weeknd has had a very interesting relationship with the Grammys.
Where do I start when I open my heart? It's never easy.
Obviously, when Blinding Lights was barred from it, which is crazy to me. Like, that is one of the biggest pop records in history, and to see that blocked out of the Grammys is kind of inexcusable. I feel like that would have been the winner that year very easily in my books. We obviously saw last year, or this year rather, just before the release of Hurry Up Tomorrow, or maybe it was the week of the release, they mended their relationship. And now I think that puts The Weeknd back in the conversation, because he's obviously very much in their good books now. They're in his good books. He's going to submit, and that album covers a lot of territory. I think that we might see Timeless nominated for either the R&B or the rap categories. I'm not sure. I guess it could be best rap/sung, that category, whatever the actual wording is for it. It leaves me right now. I'm sorry. But I think that is probably a really strong contender alongside Luther as well, because Timeless has been a massive record, huge streamer, and has just kept hanging around, hasn't really gone away. I don't think that any of the other records have had that same effect. And I think that when it comes to the pop categories, in terms of a song, I don't think he really has one to compete with, to be honest. But I do think that Timeless could be record of the year. I don't think that he has a song of the year contender. I think that Hurry Up Tomorrow is a kind of outlier for album of the year. Maybe he's done enough kind of groveling with the Grammys to get into that mode. Maybe best pop vocal album for Hurry Up Tomorrow in general. I think the best dance pop recording could actually, Wake Me Up could actually be a contender because he worked with Justice on that. And I think that would make sense in there unless they want to go more into the electronic categories, which I don't think would really be a smart move. I think the best dance pop recording is really where he'd be at home. The movie was a mess, but maybe they could cut something from that for best music video. I do think that he's going to get quite a few nominations, and I think that he will probably end up performing at the ceremony as well, just as like, I don't know, just the final end of the handshake between the Grammys and the Weeknd. And to be honest, they have some oh God, what's the word? Why am I so bad at this today? I'm very sorry. They have some groveling to do to him in terms of making up for some of the awards that he should have got in the past and he didn't. So it will be very interesting to see how they keep going with this relationship at the Grammys next year. Next one I want to talk about is Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber, while he's not a huge Grammys winner, he's actually been nominated quite a few times in categories that you wouldn't expect. I think that they gave him way more love for the Changes album than they should have. I think that he was nominated for Album of the Year for Justice, which I actually think made sense because that was such a huge record and actually a really, really tight pop record. The interesting thing with Swag is going to be that now that we've got the second part of it, he's kind of diluted it. It's also a bit ambiguous in terms of what categories that album makes sense in, because he got a bit upset when they nominated Changes or they moved Changes to the pop category from the R&B category. So I feel like he's going to really push for this album to be in the R&B category. I guess that kind of makes sense. He's worked with Carter Lang, who's worked with on a lot of the SZA stuff, and obviously she's nominated in the R&B categories. Her music is much more R&B than Justin Bieber's is, but there are certainly a lot of elements of Swag that are distinctly R&B and not so much pop. That said, I do think the best pop vocal album is his biggest chance for a nomination right now. I don't think the album of the year is going to happen for Swag. I just don't know if it's going to hang around long enough for it to have the impact to be nominated there. But I do think that Daisies is a major chance for record and song of the year because it has been quite a hit. I think that it's an excellent track. I think that his vocal performance on it is really good. I think the production is incredible, which is something that's going to be really important for record of the year. So I would really like to see him included there. In terms of the other categories, I don't think he has much of a chance in. I think that if he swept into the maybe best progressive R&B category, which is kind of vague, to be honest, but would love to see that happen there. Another person who could end up sweeping in that category is Kehlani.
You can't pick up your clothes. I had them folded. Leave me at the door while it's still open.
Folded has been a huge record for her. She's been nominated kind of sporadically. I think she was nominated for Best R&B Album for Crash. She obviously doesn't have an album to go with for this year, but Folded has been a massive record for her. So much so that I do think that it's going to take over the R&B categories, but I would actually like to see it nominated for Record of the Year, to be honest. I think this is such a good song. It is such a good song. Her vocals are so tight. The production is so tight. I don't know if it's gone up high enough on the Billboard Hot 100 for it to be recognized within that space, but it's really, really deserved, and I would love to see it. I'm not going to touch too much on that song because I do think it's still an outside chance for Record of the Year, but I would love to see it happen, and I do think it deserves a mention here. Who should we go into next? Let's go into a new name, Sombr. Sombr released his debut album, I Barely Know Her, within the Grammys submission kind of eligibility period. That's the word I'm looking for. Words are failing me today, which is really perfect when you're leading a podcast. he has a couple of huge songs that I think could be nominated here. I do think that for Record of the Year, they're going to go with Back to Friends. I'm not so sure if that falls within the eligibility period, and I would have to look at whether they submitted it last year to know, but it has blown up this year and it would make a lot of sense. If they can't submit that, they've got Undressed and 12 to 12, which I think could also be huge contenders as well. Best New Artist, in my opinion, is an absolute lock. He is probably the front runner in my mind right now. He's going to be an incredibly hard one to beat. Raven Lenae being the other one that could get a nomination here, and Alex Warren as well. The two of them are worth mentioning in this space as well, because Best New Artist, Record of the Year is also a space that they could be nominated in, although I think that Raven Lenae submitted Love Me Not last year, so I think that takes it off the table this year. That is the bell ringing to tell me that it's 5 o'clock, if you can hear that in the background. Back to Sombr. I think that also Best Pop Vocal Album, I Barely Know Her, could be in with a chance there. It's got pretty good reviews. It's doing really well on the charts now. It's expected to go into the top 10 next week, if it hasn't already by the time that you are listening to this. I think that he has just had a really good couple of weeks in terms of establishing himself as more than just a TikTok artist and establishing himself as a real pop player. He has a really dedicated fan base. And I think that could serve him well when it comes to Grammys time. And if he could lock down, I think Album of the Year is going to be really hard, to be honest. But I think Record of the Year could be within reach. We've seen them nominate new names like Benson Boone within the past couple of years, and I feel like that shows that they are open to nominating people like Sombr in that category. I would like to see it happen. Best Pop Vocal Performance, I think Best Pop Solo Performance, I think that he's in with a chance for as well. I think that it could be a really good year for Sombr. Let's talk about some that I think could have a potentially difficult time, starting with Lorde with Virgin.
Who's gonna love me like this? Who could give me like this? Where he flowed down through me.
I don't think there's been any record on this that has really taken off enough to be within the Record and Song of the Year categories and the main categories. I also don't think that Virgin is going to get an Album of the Year nomination, but I think that she could be in with a shot in the pop categories. I think the Best Pop Vocal Album could be where Virgin could be best suited, unless she ends up submitting it for Best Alternative, which I think could also be a smart move as well. I really like the album. It's one of my favorites of the year. I just don't know if it's lit the charts on fire enough and the critics on fire enough for the Grammys to take note. I feel the same way with Miley Cyrus's Something Beautiful, which is an album that I really loved, but I do think that she's going to have a hard time as well. She obviously won Record of the Year with Flowers, which kind of initiated her into the Grammys after being snubbed for so many years. Look, there's a couple of different avenues for this. Best Pop Vocal Album, maybe. Album of the Year, very difficult. Record Song of the Year, no, out of the picture. Best Pop Duo / Group Performance, her and Brittany Howard on Walk of Fame. I think that could potentially happen. But outside of that, I feel like it's going to be very difficult for Miley to get nominations this year, which is an absolute crime because that album is incredible. Let's talk about Chappell Roan, who took home Best New Artist this year. She had 2 singles out this year. She had The Giver and also The Subway. This is going to be very interesting because I think that they are going to really try for the country categories for The Giver, and I feel like they could make it happen. Given that Beyonce was awarded in the country category last year, it's clear that they're getting a little bit more progressive, and so Best Country Song, I think that The Giver could be in with at least a nomination for there, and I would be really interested to see that. I think for the rest of the categories, The Subway would be the best way to go because it's much more traditional. I feel like that is in with a chance for Song of the Year particularly, and I would like to see that happen. I think The Subway is one of the best songs of the year. Best Pop Solo Performance, The Subway, surely she's going to get a nomination for that. I mean, we've seen that the Grammys love Chappell Roan, so please make that happen for her. I would really like to see that. Let's finish up with 2 artists who I think could also be in with a big chance, starting with Billie Eilish. This one's a bit of a head scratcher for me, but apparently Wildflower is can be nominated for Record and Song of the Year. Obviously, we saw Hit Me Hard and Soft nominated last year, Birds of a Feather nominated within both of those categories. She probably, that's hard to say because I do think Not Like Us was worthy of Record of the Year, but Birds of a Feather for Song of the Year, like, that was kind of a snub in my opinion. I think that Hit Me Hard and Soft is a great record that was totally left out of any wins for, I keep saying last year, but I mean this year. You've probably already picked up on that. You've probably also picked up on that I am a bit scatterbrained today. Sorry. But if it is eligible, and from things I'm seeing it is, I think that it is going to get a nomination for Record and Song of the Year and could even be a contender for Song of the Year for a win, which would be really interesting to see. The final artist that I want to mention, because I think that things have changed a lot since this year's Grammys, where she was obviously basically completely snubbed, Gracie Abrams. She released the deluxe edition of her album, The Secret Life of Us. Is that what it was called? The Secrets of Us? Something like that. She has had a big hit since then with That's So True and also I Love You, I'm Sorry, which I don't think had picked up enough momentum by the time the Grammys happened last year. I think that she could end up getting a nomination for That's So True, definitely in Best Pop Solo Performance. But I also think that Song of the Year is a potential for that if the Grammys can come around to Gracie. That remains to be seen, but I think the fact that she's done this massive arena tour, she has a lot of love from other people in the industry, including Taylor Swift. She doesn't really have the critical acclaim on her side just yet, but she does have a lot of love from this new gen. The Grammys is constantly trying to show that they're up with this new generation. So I think that that's where That's So True could really be a contender in Song of the Year. And you know what? I think that song's a bop, and if it happens, it deserves to. That's my run through of all the pop stars that have done big things this year. If I've missed out on anybody, let me know in my DMs or send me a voice note and I will try and get to it. Who do you think is going to take home the most Grammys? Early next year, I will also be rolling out specific predictions for each category on my TikTok and Instagram, so check for that there. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I'm not going to tell you to rate me 5 stars because in terms of stringing my words together, not my best episode. But you can follow if you did like it. And I will be back on Friday for the Bop or Flop episode. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time.